As part of an EU plan aimed at easing mass migration into Europe, the first boats carrying migrants being deported from Greece have just arrived in Turkey. That was this morning. It was more than 200 people who were on these boats. Now, that might not seem like a lot of people, but this is a very crucial step for the EU, which is definitely trying to stem the flow of migrants coming in from the Middle East, namely. Kanika, so this is very important because they're sending this message basically to any would-be refugees or migrants, namely, basically telling them if you enter Greece illegally from a boat coming from Turkey, which is where a lot of people are coming from, you will be turned away. So this is namely symbolic, although it's only a few hundred people on this first trips that were made that day. A lot of boats are leaving now every single day, basically. So I mean, these are a lot of people who basically were in these processing camps in Greece and basically did not have their asylum claims met. 130 of those were Pakistani, 42 were Afghani. There was only 2 Syrians there. So you can kind of tell where a lot of these people are coming from and why their asylum claims aren't being processed, because we see a lot of these people might be, they might be economic migrants, for example, and they wanna move in when there's a lot of refugees coming in at the same time. The EU has already kind of changed their mind on their open door policies, not letting in any more people. So they're really only taking in, people from certain parts of the region that are really being affected by the fighting, namely places like Iraq and Syria, for example. So they'll be quicker to turn away people who are coming off as economic migrants.
I mean, this has been a deal that has been looked down upon, especially by many refugees. I'm surprised there's not that many outbreaks and protests and violent eruptions happening as of yet.
There was no resistance.
Yeah, I'm actually surprised to hear that. I would think there would be. They don't want to go back to Turkey. They don't want to go back to these horrible conditions where, they could be killed any moment and there's ISIS taking over. I don't know. This deal is kind of unfair, but at the same time, they have to kind of choose based on the application and their.
At the same time, though, I wouldn't be quick to say, that their journey is necessarily over just because they go back to Turkey. Maybe they can, figure something else out. I don't think a lot of these people will be sent back home. But you did touch on something that's very important here is the deplorable conditions within these camps. Even on these smaller islands in Greece, we see people in like prison-like conditions. I mean, I said that there was no resistance met yesterday or this morning when these people were being deported. But other than that, I mean, there have been a lot of instances where people were breaking down fences, riots were breaking out, people basically coming out and saying you're treating us like animals, like we're in here. We saw videos, in a lot of these detention camps, like in Hungary, for example, where they were basically throwing food over the fence. People were fighting for loaves of bread. I mean, it's
also journalist treatments of these refugees. I think journalists are also blocked from these barricades too, to not enter.
Yeah.
Because we saw that Hungarian journalist kick a refugee before, so they get bad treatment from all over.
Right, so what Turkey's going to do right now is they're going to basically seal off their border much more than they had before. They're going to definitely stop that flow coming into Europe in exchange for taking in all those people who did not have their asylum claims met. They're going to get $6 billion, just over $6 billion from the EU. So again, like I said, the EU has definitely changed its policies. A lot of people, namely in Europe, for example, in Germany, for example, have really been outspoken against this plan. But it seems like that's what's happening right now. They're definitely going to start deporting people from Greece to let them know that if you try to enter Germany or any other country in the EU illegally, coming through Turkey and then into Greece, you will be sent back to where you came from.